Hi, welcome to Building Your Best Brain podcast. I am so excited to dive into this topic with you today. It has to be up there with one of my favorite topics, and I actually have never talked about it on here before. But you don't do a PhD, you don't start a business without being a little obsessed with how to set and accomplish goals. So today is all about goal setting in a way you've probably never heard of before. And this is because I find the way that goal setting is shared with us now, it's really results driven, which makes sense, right? We set a goal, we set a benchmark, deadline, something external to accomplish, but it's set in a way that often makes us feel worse. And it's set in a way usually that actually doesn't help us achieve the goal that we want. So when I'm talking about goal setting, I'm talking about career. I'm also talking about personal, right? Whether that's a health related goal, maybe that is a mindset related goal, maybe it's a goal that you want to achieve with your family or with your partner, but actually setting yourself up for real success. And that, when I say real success, is basically setting up your brain so that you can accomplish that goal, but you're doing it in a way that actually feels good, feels like you're making progress, feels like every day you are closer to that goal. And that's because what I find with goal setting now, the way that it's taught, the way that it's, shared in the world, there's definitely a lot of good stuff there, right? So getting clear on your goals, right? That's perfect. Having big goals is great, but learning how to break it up into smaller goals, right? Those are all really great things for our brain, right? Getting clear so that we know what is that we're trying to achieve and breaking up into smaller chunks so that we can feel like we're making progress. But in the end, and I mean, I've done this for my PhD, for my business, relationships, my own personal health related goals, is you often feel discontented because you haven't achieved the goal yet. And you get into this state of very easily, right? I'll only feel successful, or I'll only feel happy, or I'll only feel um, like I bring value in the world if I achieve that goal. And it's not that goals are bad, but it's just the way that we set them up, we end up focusing on basically the absence of the goal. And if we focus on the absence of the goal, what are we growing in our brain? What kind of circuit are we firing and, strengthening? And often what we're strengthening is the lack of that goal, which makes it harder to achieve, makes it less motivating. And if somehow we do achieve that goal, we don't have any of the circuits set up to actually enjoy the fruits of your incredible hard labor. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share you a new way to set goals, a way to set goals daily towards those big goals. So, those things I mentioned before don't just go away, right? So, getting clear on your goals is important, breaking your goals into smaller, achievable chunks is important. But setting your goals up in this particular way that I've done for a couple months now has, one, made me feel much better, much, much better, to the point where I feel so rooted in the things that I think my goals are going to make me feel, right? So feeling like I bring value in the world, feeling like I'm making meaningful progress, feeling like I'm contributing into the world in a way that only I can. I feel those things already because of how I've set up my daily goals. And two, I am every single day getting closer and closer to my bigger goals. Some of them PhD related, some of them business related. And I've shared some of my wins on my platforms before, and some I'm keeping to myself because they're definitely still cooking and processing. But I didn't want to wait till those goals were quote unquote fully baked or fully actualized before giving you this tool because it's so freaking powerful. I feel like that's enough of a preamble. I'm going to share with you how I set these goals, and I'm going to use an example to carry us through so that it's really easy to see how it's applied. But of course, this example doesn't have to be mine. It can be in your other areas of life, right? Whether it's financial, family, mental health, personal health. You can take out my example and fill in yours. I'm going to use career as an example. And for me, and this might be the case for you, I'm currently finishing my PhD in neuroscience, and I've started my business, which is brain training. So, using neurofeedback devices to basically help rewire people's brains so that they're showing up as the fullest versions of themselves, the most confident, the most well resourced. And a lot of it is dealing with your source of your stress and basically the stress circuit in your brain, rewiring that, and then everything comes to place really well together. That's my main business, but of course, I'm doing that in parallel with finishing my PhD. And often they feel a little bit at odds with each other, right? And so often what was happening was I was feeling like I was making progress in neither in neither area of life, and getting a little frustrated at where I am with my PhD because all I want to do, right, is pour everything into the business and supporting people that way. And what I was noticing was that a lot of my brain's energy was focusing on the fact that I wasn't progressing in either. Was this a reality? Absolutely not. I'm making incredible progress in both. But this was the narrative my brain was having, was like, okay, well, because I have to finish my PhD, I can't put anything into my business. And then when I'm putting stuff into my business, I'm not putting anything in my PhD. And, I can't be successful in either. And so I have a clear vision, right? Which is to complete my PhD next year, right? Defend my thesis, become Dr. Sylvie LaHaye. And I have a clear vision for my business, right? How many people I want to take one on one, the group work that I want to do. And that's, associated with specific number of people I want to support. This podcast is also a goal of mine to be able to expand and grow. And with both those things, I need skills. There's certain skills that I need to be able to do these things successfully. And in there, which is really cool, lies the overlap. And so what I did, because I didn't want to continue to reinforce the circuit that nothing I do is enough and that I'm not going to be successful, right? Because that's essentially what I was doing by focusing on these two goals. Even when I broke them up in smaller chunks, I was still focusing on the lack of those things being completed to the vision that I wanted them to be completed. And so what I did was, focusing on my PhD in particular, what are the skills that are transferable from my PhD to the business? Now, this is really great if you're in a similar boat as me, where you want to start your own business, but you're working at a job right now that's not your own business, and you keep reinforcing that feeling of lack of, oh, because I'm not doing my business, then whatever I'm doing here is a waste of time. And again, kind of reinforcing that there's no way you can be successful. Or maybe it's you're looking for a promotion at work, or maybe there's a new job that you're interested in. And because you're not in that position yet, or you don't have that new job yet, you're looking at your current situation and only seeing how it is not beneficial. And so what I did was I looked at the skills I needed, and some of the skills that are presented in my PhD that I will need for business is, one, an attention to detail. So being able to focus on one task at a time and being very detailed and thorough, right? Because if you're an owner of your own business, right, you own everything. You're responsible for everything. Yes, you have people supporting you, of course, that you hire, but it's that level of detail, especially when it comes to the vision. And with a PhD and doing your PhD project, you're basically a CEO of your project. Yes, you have a supervisor that will kind of give the final say of things, and you do a project underneath their supervision, but ultimately you're the CEO, you're in the driver's seat of your project. So one of the skills, again, was to be very detail oriented and very clear about the vision. Another skill that I'm doing in my PhD right now, which I see as a future part of my business, I would love, it's been on my mind, I think, for like 5 or 6 years to write a book one day. Nothing, it's going to happen. I won't say when, I won't say how, because I, I'm just imagining like getting a bunch of comments like, when's the book coming? But I have to write a thesis, right? And this is a huge, huge document that I have to put together that, needs to tell a story that is all of the data and all of the experiments I've done over the last 4.5 years. Doing this well is super important for my business, right? And this is a perfect place where I can focus on that skill and building that skill so that skill is ready and well built when it is the right time for me to write a book. So once I listed the skills, like, okay, these are the skills that I'm going to need for my business, that I am cultivating and strengthening in my PhD. Another layer to that, which is kind of cool that a lot of people don't think about when it comes to goal setting, is ultimately you want these things to feel a certain way, which I alluded to before, right? Feeling like you're adding value, feeling successful, feeling like you're making a difference in the world. And you can set those goals now and start building those feelings now, right? So in my PhD, I am working on a topic that very, very few people are working on. And it's extremely likely that the experiments that I'm doing right now, nobody else in the world is doing them. And by doing them and putting them out there, whether it's in a publication or my thesis, I'm bringing value to the world, to that field. I am helping literally science advance forward through all of my labor. And so, something that I can work on as a part of my goal is feeling that value, seeing how the progress I'm doing in the PhD is bringing value to the world. And so this isn't a direct, like tangible skill, but this is something that you want to start deriving that feeling internally. And that's something that a feeling I want to have with having my own business, right? Is that I feel that sense of value, that I'm giving something unique to the world and I'm helping people in a unique way that brings a lot of value in their life. And that's something that I don't have to wait till my business is fully fleshed out, you know, operating with a team, all those things to feel that way right now. And I can actually use my PhD to start feeling those things. So when it comes to your bigger goals, look at the skills, look at the things you want to feel as a result of that big goal, and start writing those down. So, writing a list. And with this list, you'll pick a few. And so, I would invite you to start picking one every day. And then, as you get more comfortable with this exercise, depending how it feels, you can start picking more than one. But every morning, I pick those skills and how I want to work on them. So I'll have my category, right? So my category is okay, so in the morning, I set an intent for my PhD. And my goal for my PhD that day, and a goal that's been coming up a lot, is that whatever I get done that day, I feel like I've made massive progress and add so much value to the field at large. That can be one goal. Another goal related to my PhD that basically happens in my PhD, but is really helping me with my business, is writing in a way that's incredibly clear, informative, and the process itself feels easy and enjoyable, right? Because you don't want to, I mean, I don't want to write a book, and I know it's going to have its challenges, but I don't want the whole thing to feel like super painful and spend a year writing a book not enjoying the process the entire time. And so those are the kind of basically intentions, or basically mini daily goals. Mini daily goals. And so once I do that in the morning, I read it, I put it away. I go about my day, And what's great with setting the intent in the morning is that you're basically priming your brain to look for opportunities to fulfill those little goals, little opportunities to make a dent in that daily goal, which is basically a chunk of that big dream goal that you have. And what's really cool, because you're working on a skill or you're working on a feeling or a belief that you're becoming more rooted to, it's all internal. You will see it come out externally, and I'll explain a few examples in my PhD in particular, how it has come out externally, which has been super, super cool. But basically, you're not relying on anything outside of yourself to be able to get wins in these little mini goals, which is super great for your brain. We've been told a lie that being hard on yourself really helps with your goals or to propel them forward or like dream bigger, work harder, do better. Your brain needs a lot of reward in order to start making change. Basically, your brain is trying to keep you safe, right? So that's where your fight or flight response comes in. That's why when we do set goals and we focus on kind of all the things we're missing because the goals haven't happened yet, that can set off your fight or flight response because it feels like a threat, right? It's a threatening thing to not be able to go after what you want, or feeling like you're not making it, basically. And it'll also create some urgency depending on the level of want you have for it, right? So if you really want that promotion, you really want that new job, you really want to start your own business, there's a sense of urgency, there's a sense of pressure. And those things will kick off that mechanism in your brain to be like, okay, well, we're not safe where we are right now. So let's get in our fight or flight. Let's do all the neurochemical, physical changes in our bodies so that we're alert. But that doesn't, again, that doesn't help build that circuit, build those skills, build those internal beliefs that'll actually get you towards your goal faster. It does the opposite. And the other thing that your brain needs is a lot of reward, a lot of positive stimulation, for lack of a better word, to start creating a new circuit, right? So in the neurofeedback space, which is where we use EEGs, and then through an app on your phone, will tell you in real time what your brainwave state is at. So for example, if we're training to increase alpha brainwave associated with relaxation, then through your phone, when you do successfully increase it, the volume of your music will become louder. So you can tell in real time. In those studies, they've actually looked at, okay, well, how much reward does somebody need for a brain to start learning and catching on, like, okay, like we're trying to increase this brainwave. Okay, this is, what we're trying to do. I'm going to learn to do that more reliably. And it's over 50%. Like everybody's different, right? So especially like with the people I work with one-on-one, everyone's different, but I've never seen somebody with less than 50%. Usually once we get to like 60%, 70%, meaning that 60 to 70% of the time you're getting reward, the brain really catches on and learns faster that way. Otherwise, it just kind of doesn't get it or has a bit of like learned helplessness almost and will just not figure it out and not do it for you. So beating yourself up if everything is missing is reinforcing everything that's missing. Celebrating all of the small wins and shifts you have is building a circuit that's going to support the bigger wins and shifts. And that's the only, like, I'm very cognizant of not using absolute language, but it's really like the only way to get at a goal is to celebrate yourself and the small wins and notice the small wins as much as you possibly can. And that's what these mini goals really help with, is to break it down into daily things that are internal, right? So they're not external, but they're internal. And celebrate the small wins. So at the end of the day, right? So in the morning, I set these little mini goals. I go about my day. I come home at night and before bed, I look at these mini goals and I kind of make a list of, what went well. Like, oh, well, so for example, right, feeling like I've made progress. Let's say I did 2 hours of analysis that day and I noticed a new trend. That and I had a moment where I was like, oh, like it's so great that I did that analysis and noticed this new trend. I'm going to readjust my experiments tomorrow because I did this work. That is for sure a piece of evidence that I can write underneath and bullet point that I achieved for that goal. And what's cool is that's both a physical action I did, right? It's a skill, right? I'm paying attention, I'm making progress, and I'm feeling good about that progress. Another thing sometimes I'll record too is because, we're skill building, right? So we're going to have some days where there are wins, we are doing well. And then you also become more aware of when you're not doing it, right? And this is the kicker because you're like, Sylvie, you just told me that we're focusing too much on what's missing. And now you're telling me to record what's missing, sort of. Basically, you are becoming more aware of the times that you're not doing those things. Let's say I'm doing an experiment and I have my day planned out where I'm doing an experiment and I'm also going to be writing my thesis. An experiment that I haven't done in years. Maybe this is a true story. Maybe. An experiment I haven't done in years, and it goes well. I execute everything. Maybe I make a mistake here and there, but somehow at the end of the day, the experiment still worked. But it took longer than anticipated, and I didn't get as much writing as I wanted done. And I started noticing that I wasn't focusing on the fact that like I completed an experiment I haven't done in many years successfully, and I'm focusing on, I didn't get any thesis writing done. Today's a wash. I'm, not successful. I'm not making meaningful progress. Like I'm feeling behind. At the end of the day, I write that down because I wouldn't have noticed it before if I didn't have the school. And if I didn't notice it before, how the hell am I supposed to shift and help make that better, right? So that's how it's a win, right? A win is not just when positive things happen, but when you're noticing those areas that you're missing and you're getting curious and you're like, okay, well, what could I have done differently, right? Well, maybe right now I should just be focusing on my experiments and leave thesis writing all on its own. So maybe it's a scheduling thing. Maybe it's taking a moment of appreciation right then and there in bed as you're writing for the fact that the experiment worked and that nobody has done this experiment technically in the world yet. So you're really the first of the first to try it. So that is progress and that is adding value to the field, no matter what the results are, the fact that you're even attempting it. And so, in doing this exercise, which I've been doing every day for the last couple months now, I've noticed really big progress in my PhD in particular. For example, I'm sure some of you guys know this already. It's in my science behind neutrality episode, but I published a paper, a first author paper that, is a whole story on its own, the kind of wild hoops and confusion that we had to go through in order to get it published. Um, there's experiments that have taken no time to be absolutely perfect, right? Like I started doing, this is for like my really sciencey geeky friends out there, qPCRs again, and I haven't done them in 4 years. Like I did a few in the beginning of my PhD and none again. And I banged out like 6, 7, 8 perfectly. The results are great. I can use them right away. And I have a thesis seminar date, which is basically the presentation you give before you get the okay to write your thesis. And that also worked out beautifully in terms of timing and how my experiments are lining up. And so it's two parts, right? I also feel a lot better about where I'm at with my PhD. I see how doing my PhD right now while running my business is perfect, and I truly wouldn't have it any other way. Um, the skills that I'm gaining in my PhD are incredibly helpful for my business, and my business is starting, right? So there's things that I'm tweaking and changing. And if I were to just do that 100% of the time, it might not be the version that I would want, if that makes sense. So being able to do both at the same time has had so many more advantages than I initially interpreted. What this allows you to do is really to direct energy in your brain towards what's actually going to make your goals move forward in a way that actually feels good, where you can actually enjoy the journey of getting towards your goals. It used to frustrate me so much. Everybody would say, enjoy the journey. Enjoy the journey. It's about the journey, not the destination. And that does sound nice, but when you're in it, that doesn't sound so nice. That sounds pretty freaking annoying, especially when you really want to get to the destination. And we only want to get to the destination because we want to feel a certain way. And there's also skills. The journey is important because it helps us build skills. And so if we focus on building the skills and instilling those feelings, those values, thoughts, beliefs internally, it's going to make the process faster, more enjoyable, and you'll actually be able to hold that big goal you have at the end without being able to actually enjoy it and feeling it and not worry about losing it, because you've had this process of building in a way that feels really, really good and like you're making progress. And so if you're ready to try this type of goal setting, right, you can do it now. I suggest to do it now with a small goal, or big goal, like whatever works for you. But to start with one goal. So starting with one area of life, starting with one goal, focusing on either one feeling or one skill. Every morning, setting yourself that small daily goal. And then at the end of your day, writing down in bullet form evidence on how you have achieved that goal that day, or noticing where you maybe didn't, but you've brought awareness to it. Now you can start brainstorming new ways of doing or being. If you're having trouble setting your daily goals, or if you want any support, please drop them in the comments below. What is your big goal? And I can help you pick a skill or a feeling that you can start working on. And as always, thank you so much for your time and your energy. I am so excited for you to start goal setting this way. And I'm really excited to hear how it's working for you and the big wins that I know are just waiting for you on the other side. And I look forward to the next time we get to chat together, where we can continue to focus on how to rewire your brain from within to support the highest version of yourself.